Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us and being on time. We may have a few more participants, parents coming in. And so I just want to jump into the slides and appreciate you for being here. Your kids are lucky to have you. So just a little bit about me. I'm a mom of two daughters who are now in their 20s, and they actually went to Mar Vista. So that's why it's near and dear to my heart. I'm a mediator and conflict resolution specialist, which I really needed with my children. And I've worked for 25 years in the social emotional learning field as both conflict resolution, as well as how to support parents be able to communicate better with their kids. And I did this because my own daughter was super strong-willed. I don't know if you can relate, but we just were in a power struggle from the beginning. She was spirited, passionate, amazing. And until I learned some of these skills, I didn't understand her. And so she and I just went like this. I'm up here in my head because I was doing everything from my rational. We'll get more into that in depth as the presentation goes on. And she was down here in her body and her emotions. And so we just didn't understand each other. And I do want this to be super interactive because this is for you. And if there's any questions, you can put them in the chat. You can unmute yourself and just ask. I tend to have a lot of information because I just want to give you all the things that are going to support you in your parenting journey. And sometimes it's too fast. So feel free just to jump in and say, yeah, but, because that means you're grappling with it. And that means it's really resonating and you're trying to apply it, because for most of us, this is absolutely counterintuitive information. It's not what our parents knew how to do. There's no fault or blame there, but my mom is a librarian. My dad is an engineer. They were all up in their heads. They were very rational, very practical, and they didn't know how to meet me emotionally, which is a big miss for me, because then I didn't know how to meet my kids when they were angry and they were upset and they were nervous and they were afraid, and I would just try to fix them. So that's a lot of where this information is going to be going to. So I just want to start with a quote from someone I really admire. And if you don't know about Dr. Becky Kennedy, she has a podcast and a book, as well as a membership. So behavior is not the problem. It's only the symptom. And I really like this metaphor. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the iceberg, and how when there's the tip of the iceberg, and that's the bad behavior. So maybe for you today, it was yelling. Maybe it was lying about how many sweets they had. I would love all of you actually to start out and think of what is one tangible thing that one of your children, your child did that really was awful, that was frustrating, that made you upset, that messed up your day. We have so many chances to practice because our kids are learning, and they're born with all the feelings and none of the skills. And so that's one of the challenges. So when there's bad behavior, that's a symptom that something's going on underneath the surface, that they need our support. And the hard part is that usually bad behavior, lying, hitting, cheating at games, resisting, yelling no, being disrespectful. There's so many ways that kids act out. And the hard part is this counterintuitive 180 we're going to talk about, that when they are doing that, our limbic system gets activated. Say, I need my brain. So the model of the brain is such a good reminder to me of what happens, because when they're fully functioning, we're using the whole brain, and especially the right and left hemispheres. When our kids are born, they're really back here in nonverbals and reactive. And that's where it all comes back from. Our lizard brain, you've probably heard this before, it's our oldest part of our brain. It engages in an instant when we feel any sense of threat. Well, that can be emotional threat as well as physical threat. And so our body doesn't distinguish between the two. So when we get triggered by their reactive behavior, they're already triggered, then we're both just gonna go like this to each other. And when that happens, we have nothing up here, they have nothing up here, and we're both directing it at each other. And so that's the moment. We're really just talking about one moment in time when kids are doing this bad behavior, this something that is not okay with us. And we either stay in our heads and we just miss them because they're again in their heart and their bodies, or we get reactive back and we direct it at them. So I'm going to go on to the other quote, which is, your anger and disapproval doesn't help your child. It only helps you, and it's kind of an illusion, offload pain. When we blame and fault or disapprove, that's just trying to get us to feel better, but it has a cost. Our child is trying to tell you that their bad behavior, that they need our support and they need connection. So it's this one moment in time when they do something awful, lying, hitting. I want you each to think of a particular thing, refusing to eat this beautiful meal you've made, refusing to put on their shoes, refusing to go to school, all those things. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And we receive it as, how dare you? And they are actually asking for support in a very not skillful way. So let's get into this. And again, for the people that have just joined, I just want you to know that this is interactive and I love questions. You can either unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat because I really, some of this information is just very different. And we're going to get to the very practical what to do towards the end. So the focus today is that there is a gold mine when your child is doing something bad. The gold mine is both for them to learn how to regulate their emotions and for you to be able to learn how to regulate your own emotions so that you can hold space for theirs. So that's a tricky thing because our parents weren't, at least mine, weren't good at this. Our schools, when I was growing up, didn't teach it. So all of a sudden, we're expected to both fly the plane and work on the plane and fly the plane. We're trying to repair the plane. We're trying to learn all these skills while our kids are having all these emotions. They're getting angry. They're getting anxious. They're feeling hurt because someone at the school didn't sit with them. There's just a million chances to practice this. And I just want to focus on that one moment when we have a choice. We can either do our old ways, how our parents trained us, or new ways. We can choose a new path, which is this 180 flip and get to the gold. The other thing I want to talk about is what your job as a parent is. And you have two of them, only two. Doesn't that feel a little bit more simple than what we usually are frantic and thinking we have to do a million things at once? We have two jobs. And this is according to Becky Kennedy. One is to set boundaries, is to create the structure and to communicate the structure, what is okay and not okay in our homes. There's a whole webinar we can do about boundaries alone. And I'm going to give you some support after. The second thing is to empathize and validate our kids' emotions. So we set a boundary, they're going to have emotions. We empathize, doesn't mean we give in, but we empathize and we validate. That's what most parents get wrong. Children have just one job. Their job is to feel as they learn. And they do this really well. However, our culture civilizes it out of them. And our parents showed me how to repress and avoid and numb and do everything to distract and not feel and just stay in my head. So that's why we're having such an impasse with kids today and when I was a kid. So we're going to learn how to talk and listen in a new way, and in a way that that gets them to actually want to listen to us, want to cooperate, because we see them, we hear them, we accept them. And it's the challenge to feel first, validate the feeling first before going to problem solving. That's the other thing, is that this can be problematic. And there is good news. I just want to leave you with the most important thing. The most important thing is that you have agency and you can learn this. I am living proof. I started out being, again, as I said in the beginning, so reactive and just so at loggerheads, so in a tug of war, a power struggle with my oldest daughter. And now we have the most beautiful relationship, and we did once I started learning these skills and tools. Oh, that's not right. Somehow, hold on 1 second. Technology is failing me here. Okay, for some reason it went to the end, so I'm going to have to just fly through. Okay, so we got to there. There we go. So why do kids resist? I'm going to go through this a little quickly because I want to get to the meat of your guys's why this doesn't work for you. So when kids resist, they don't do what you want. You say it's time to leave the park, and they go, "No, I'm in the middle of playing." Ah! And then we go, "Oh yes, you're going to," and sort of do that disapproval face. That's one of the hardest things for kids to get back. So children are born with this super intense personality, and it's both developmental depending on what age they're at. And as I said, all kids are born with all the feelings at full throttle and none of the skills. This is the challenge for us parents. It is the hardest job on earth. And there's a range of numbers of kids, but I know that some of you have 4, some 3, some 2, and some 1. So it's just it's an experience. It's a hard experience. So each child, if you have more than one, you'll notice, has different temperaments, and that also creates really challenging. Some are more pleasing and more adaptable. Some, like my oldest daughter, are just, I could not tell her what to do without her needing to have her own way and just throw it right back in my face. And that is hard. So part of it is just getting out your compassion for yourself. Actually, in the brain, compassion is at the back of the head. So I often try to just, remind myself, oh gosh, I need compassion. I don't need inner critic. I need compassion. This is hard. This is a hard moment. So different children have different temperaments. And then bad behavior actually means lagging skills and unmet needs. And when I can remember temperament, lagging skills, and unmet needs, it is so much easier for me not to take their behavior personally, not to get out my "how dare you" and try to control and double down on yelling and changing their behavior. When I'm in a threatened state, Dan Siegel says I pop my lid and I have no access to my front brain. I just am in lizard brain. All I want to do is stop their emotions and stop their behavior. That is so invalidating to our kids. So that's why we're looking for new skills to do something differently. Because I'm sure you've tried. Every time you do this to your kids, often, especially if you have a strong-willed kid, they'll just double down and get louder and get more forceful and more defiant. That's a mess. That's not fun for anyone in the family, and it can affect others in the family, especially when there's one that seems to take up more than their fair share because they're so strong-willed. So we can talk about that also. So again, if you can remember, it'll help you not take it personally. So when kids do resist, why do we get triggered? Why do we go, how dare you? Why do we get disapproval face? And actually, it's because I'm feeling threatened. It's because I feel like they are disrespecting my authority. And I've worked all day long, and this is the thanks I get. So it's again, of course we feel that way. This is not how I thought it was going to go. I thought kids were going to be much easier. Not the case. As I said before, we take their behavior personally. And the big thing for me, which I said a little bit in the beginning, is that we were never modeled and shown by our parents because they weren't shown by their parents. This is a new way of being, is being able to empathize and validate first. Because if a friend does that to us, don't your shoulders just drop and you feel like you can breathe and you feel met, you feel understanding, you feel seen. It just feels so good. But when we're in this threatened state, we're not able, we don't usually think of it. So that's why the most important thing is remembering job one is validate and empathize, which is with ourselves first. We're going to get to that next. So if we weren't shown how to feel fear, how to feel anger, that we can do that and not be threatened or have it not get disapproval face back in me. My mom would give that if I was angry or if I disrespected her or if I felt hurt. She's like, oh, you don't feel hurt. It's okay. Here, let's just feel better. You're going to be okay. She would rationalize and she would try to talk me out of my feelings. Well, this is very invalidating, unintentionally, by all parents. So the key is that there's an unmet need underneath, and that's the gold mine underneath. And again, any questions, please just let them pop up. So where do parents, I've been doing this coaching for almost 8 years now and had my own kids for 24. And I have a lot of experience about where we get stuck, where we get to that point where we're not communicating, we're making everything worse, everybody's crying or everybody's yelling, and it's just a mess. So I have been there too many times to count, and I've coached parents through these examples for, again, hundreds of parents for years. So I just want to validate you that this is really challenging. And here are some of the things that parents either don't know, weren't given as children, and just seem to miss. And it helps them get stuck where everybody's yelling. So they habitually, and it's unintentional, they tend to offload and blame and I'm right when they feel uncomfortable. So if my child is hurting or is anxious or lonely or angry or sad, that makes me very upset. I feel like I should do something. I'm being a bad mom. And all those thoughts aren't helping me. And so all I want to do is get rid of it. All I want to do is get rid of all those awful thoughts that are in my stomach and they're pressure on my chest and my jaw gets tight and I feel hot and I just feel awful. So my first instinct in that moment of argument is just to stop it, to talk them out of it, to fix it, make them feel better. And all of those things are not how we're biologically designed, which I'm going to go into next. You also can't see that your child is stuck in a reaction and in an emotion that is actually for them. They actually need that emotion. Again, biologically designed that way. But when they're in the middle of it, when they're back here in lizard brain and they're yelling and they're having a tantrum on the floor, and it's hard because we're both having reactions at once. But it's not productive to talk because they're not reasonable. They're not rational. They are literally out of their mind. They've got no access to the front part of our brain. And if we're reacting because we're in Trader Joe's or Safeway and they're doing this big, awful tantrum, then we are going to feel mortified and just, again, want it to stop. That is the hardest situation. So everyone rub the back of your head, and just say, oh, I need compassion. I don't need more judgment, either at myself, I'm a terrible mom, how did I let it get this far? Why didn't I feed them before we went? Or judgment at them, how could you do this to me? This is so embarrassing. We just need to get to the store so you can get to soccer practice, so we can get to dinner, so you can get to bath and bed, and So just, again, compassion. This is a hard moment. If you can do that one thing from this day forward, of when it's a tricky moment, we can talk about the solutions, but just stop and give yourself a little compassion. This is a hard moment. Your child is having a hard moment. It's the most important thing to not see them as a wolf, but to see them as a hurting puppy. So the other thing that we do wrong is that we set boundaries when we're in the heat of anger and feeling threatened. And that is not a good time to talk, to set boundaries, to teach, to resolve. Nothing. So we're going to talk about what to do, but setting boundaries in that moment is not ideal. And then the last thing is that what parents just miss on is that they want to tell and be right and teach and criticize and you should and evaluate them and tell them where they're messing up, all in this moment, which is the moment of choice, the moment of intensity. Instead of doing what we used to do, old ways, we're going to learn what to do, because when we do these, it makes it worse. So I just want to talk about our thoughts, and I use my fist as an example of what a video camera can see. So in the example of you're leaving the park, or you're in Trader Joe's and they can't have that cookie that they want. So what happens is that you can see their facial expression. You can hear the decimal of their tone of voice. You can hear the words they say, no, I have to have the cookies. Or no, I won't leave the park. That's what the video camera can see and hear. And that's pain. That's hard. The second arrow is what we put right on top of what happens, and it's our story, and we believe our story. We're right. I'm right that it's time to leave the park, that I did everything right, that I gave you the warning. I'm right that we're not going to get cookies because we have them at home and I want to get less sugar in our house. When we just focus on all the second arrow, the interpretations, the thoughts, all the things we think, and when we attach to all those, it just makes it worse and harder. So the more we can stay in just observation without all the thoughts, it is a purer communication, and we're more able to relate and connect with our child. The problem isn't that our child is reacting. The child is that then we react, and then all of us are armored up, and we're trying to be right, and we're trying to please and perfect and perform, and we just create this armor, and we can't connect with our kids. And so this is just a visual example of when we are in our sort of this disapproval phase, that's not helping our kids get out of their tantrum, their reaction more quickly. What they need right then is understanding, is you to validate. So we're going to get to those things about what to say and what to do in that hard moment when you have that choice. Old ways, disapproval, shame, judgment, trying to tell them, control them, all those things I did, I'm sure you do. And again, it's not beat ourselves up. Oh, I'm such a bad mom. How could I do that over and over and over again? No, we're okay. We're doing the best we can. When we know better, we'll do better, which is why you guys are here, and that's impressive. So here's the good news, that we can break the cycle. We can meet ourselves when we're in our upset. We can meet our kids when they're in their upset in a way that doesn't make it worse, that doesn't make it more inflammatory, that doesn't make us in a power struggle, that helps us connect and understand. And actually, each one of those hard, intense moments can be a way to grow and to model for your kids how they can do this in their own lives. Because the big goal here is not to for us to be the wise one, but for us to model so that then they can start making their own choices about how to feel their feelings, how to get to their unmet needs, and how to regulate themselves when we're not even around, when they are at the school playground, when they are, 15 and trying new risky behaviors. We want them to trust their inner selves, not wait for me to be the police. So that's the support. So the meeting yourself first is the first step in the 5 steps to connect framework. And it's to just be with wherever you are. If you're upset, meet yourself there. I'm upset, validate yourself. Do I need to take a break? Because the thing that we really don't want to do anymore is direct our upset at our kids. That just makes it worse. And we do this by judging, telling, disapproval face. So there's other things we can do. So is there a boundary I need to set? Can I validate and empathize with my child, even with their bad behavior? It's job number 1. And it totally changes their whole energy. When I started doing this with my kids, I call it the quick win. When I started validating them instead of judging and telling them what to do, they could breathe. They interrupted themselves. They were like, oh, mom is acting differently. I'm not in trouble. I'm safe. She's understanding. Their whole shoulders just dropped, and I could tell their energy had totally shifted. So they didn't have to keep doing this. We could finally connect and communicate. So just want to plug for this works. So what does my child need at that moment? They need connection, they need understanding, they need partnership. And the hard thing is that it is so habitual, at least it was for me, to either disapprove or to want to teach and want to tell and want to be right about something. So I'm not saying this is easy, but it is the way to a beautiful relationship with your kids, and having them be able, right now today, my daughters, 21 and 24, teach this to their friends. So it is, I just want to empower you that this is an amazing new way to relate. So go on to the next, because I want to get to the Q&A and have everyone be able to work with an example of their own. So I have the chicken and the egg up there, and you're probably wondering, why is there a chicken and an egg? So the hard thing is that when your child is yelling no, or when your child is hitting their brother, or when your child is refusing to put on shoes, or refusing to go to bed, or all those things, of course, our first instinct is to look toward the child. However, the child is just the stimulus. The child is not the one that needs the oxygen mask on first. Because if you're both triggered, I need my oxygen mask on first, or else I won't be able to be the sturdy, calm, connected, grounded parent to be able to validate them. I'll just come at them with, how dare you, and stop hitting your brother, and just telling them from across the room. I would usually shout it. And that did not have the effect I wanted it to. So the chicken and the egg is what to do. Do you go to your child first, or do you go inside and go, what's going on with me? And my whole lived experience, and from, again, years of coaching hundreds of parents, it's changed. The new cycle is to, where am I? Am I tired? Is this the 24th blow up? And did I not get any of my own needs met? That's important data for me. So the first thing is to stop and self-connect. Where am I coming from? If I'm absolutely low battery and I am just raw, then it's just acknowledge that and say, this is going to be a hard night. And I'm going to do my best to not direct stuff at my kids because I can own it. When I admit I am in a grumpy mood, I'm hungry too, I had a bad day, when I can actually share that with my kids, then at least I'm being authentic. The hard part for them is when my nonverbals are saying one thing, like, oh, grumpy and just bad and frowning and stomping around the kitchen as I make dinner. And then I say, everything's fine, we're all fine. Then that is so incongruous. And that makes them nervous. That makes them wary. And that's, so the best thing we can do is stop to self-connect and go, where am I? And wait to talk or teach or correct behavior or any of those things, because again, it'll just make it worse. So the other thing I can do for myself, which is what I was sort of doing in as an example, is self-validate. Oh, no wonder I'm so having a hard time making dinner and hearing a complaint, because I've had a hard day. I'm tired. I didn't get my exercise. I didn't get my needs met. I didn't get a chance to read my book. I didn't get all the things I know will calm my nervous system. I'm just going to say, hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm grumpy, because I don't want to be incongruous. And the most important thing that I can model for my kids is to be authentic. So the other thing, again, that kind of goes with it, is acknowledge my feelings. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling overwhelmed. When we can speak it, that leaves the guesswork, because as soon as we don't own it, they will make up a story that they're doing something bad. They'll go to self-blame, they'll go to insecurity, and they won't learn to trust, especially when we invalidate their feelings, they won't learn to trust their intuition. So the most important thing I can do is to learn these skills so I can model them. They will learn so much more when I model these behaviors of tuning into my body, acknowledging my feelings, stopping when I'm upset, admitting when I'm upset, than if I pretend everything's fine because I'm performing and I'm pleasing when inside is all a mess. We're going to talk in the end about a family system to set limits. And then the question is, am I ready to listen, to understand their feelings, instead of just tell them what they did wrong? It's the order of things. I can't problem solve and I can't tell them until I've listened and I've validated, because they need to feel seen, safe, heard, and accepted. They are absolutely the core needs: seen, safe, heard, and accepted. Especially when they're being bad, especially when they're dysregulated, especially when they are having all these hard emotions and they don't know what to do with them. And I'm the parent who isn't able to model feeling all those things because I never learned how. I was never shown how. So it's a tough journey. And the most important thing is to start with ourselves. So I have, again, tons more information about that, but that's what I want to say on that for now. Yes, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a question. Can you give an example of verbalizing validation? Yes, and I have some scripts. So verbalizing validation, so for example, in the not wanting to leave the park, that would be, oh gosh, I know you want to keep playing. Of course you do. This has been so fun with your friend here, and you're just running, and it's just, oh, it's so hard that play has to end. I get it. I see you. I believe you. If you can even say that, then it shifts their whole energy. They may still have the desire to want to keep playing. They may still push back, especially the strong-willed kids. But the more you can validate them, show you see them, not give in, not just say, okay, well, we'll stay here another hour. What about, who cares about dinner and bath and bed? It's not changing your mind, because that boundary gives them structure and safety, but it's seeing them first. It's the order of things. It's seeing them, validating their impulse, validating their lived experience. I believe you. I get it. I didn't want to leave the park. Tell a relating story. I didn't want to leave the park when I was your age either. I so know what you're feeling. So hope that helps. We have to self-regulate before we're able to assist them with their regulation. Yes, and that's hard. That is not easy. Okay, so let's go on to, and I love the question, so please keep them coming. How does it keep? I think I'm going too far over. I'm so sorry for that technical. Okay, so we just did this. Go to, okay, so what to do for your child. So after you put on your own oxygen mask, you've met yourself, you've given yourself compassion, you've validated, oh, it makes sense, I feel overwhelmed and just at the end of my rope. And you've done all those things. So your nervous system is able to regulate a bit, and you're able to be authentic, not happy. You're still grumpy and upset and overwhelmed, but you're at least authentic and you're clear about it. So then what can you do for your child? And this is the one that I was talking about, is the 180-degree shift. And we're going from old ways, and our old ways was to get right in their face and tell them all the things they're doing wrong, and that they have to listen because I've given them the warning and I did it right, and now I'm pissed, and okay, shit's hitting the fan. I'm gonna yell and all that, right? That's really familiar. When we can do this relating first, which is normalizing whatever they're feeling, normalize, oh man, I know your anger is intense. How big is it? Is it as big as this house? Is it as big as all the way up to the moon? You know, you give them language for how awful it feels. You validate that, and the other, should have put the mistakes that parents make that I made, is that we think and we talk about emotions, which is one step better, but we need to experience them in our bodies. And so relating is, oh yeah, where are you feeling that? Or is it your fists? Are you just like wanting to just get, because you just want to hurt your brother because you just didn't get what you wanted and you're so angry? And it's giving voice and it's giving expression to the lived experience and the physical experience, and normalize it. Don't shame it and should it, and don't make them feel better, because the hard emotions and the discomfort is here for them so that they can know they have an unmet need, so that you know they have an unmet need. It's not just to gloss over it and just think our way out of this. It is, oh, there's something that needs to be given. Is it connection? Is it power in their world? Is it something? So I'm jumping to the end about the needs, but it's normalizing feelings and needs. It's a huge step. And that it's not that bad behavior is, we can work with the bad behavior once we validate the feelings and the needs. They will stop doing it because they feel seen, heard, safe, and accepted. So then what you want to do is just stop to connect. And this is really hard if you have a big, intense, strong-willed child. So that's why I built my whole business. It's pretty much my coaching practice is only parents with those kids, because they don't feel lovable. They don't feel good. And they also don't want to be comforted. They want time and space. So I just want to put that in if you have a really intense one. For a more accommodating child, like my second child, when she was having a really hard time, she would love a hug, and she could get through her upset more quickly because she was more accepting of, a nonverbal touch, or she was just She was just easier. So anyway, but the stop to connect was a zip, because the old way I had was to teach, tell too many words, try to tell them in the moment when they're upset, how to do better next time. And then they're not here. They're not accepting or internalizing or absorbing anything. Stop, because they're back here. You need to work with this part of them before we move on to anything else like problem solving. That's down the road. So the other thing is that, yes, their behavior is inconvenient and maybe unfamiliar, but it's all they got. If they could do better, they would do better. And so again, it's just that, I get it, you're having a hard time. The other part is understanding them and not taking it personally. They're not doing it to you. They're not doing it to me. They're doing it for themselves because they have an unmet need. They've got dysregulated emotions that feel completely overwhelming and scary. When I get scared of their anger, upset, nervousness, then they go, oh my gosh, even my parent is not able to handle my big emotions. This must be catastrophic. And it really freaks them out. This is why I need to do my work to be okay with my fear, my anger, my anxiety, so that then when they feel them, I can normalize it and I can hold space for it. It's a hard ask, but that's the road. And so once we are not reactive, because we've put on our own oxygen masks, we've taken the break we need, even if it's just for a minute in the bathroom or in the kitchen, washing our hands, even if it's just to give yourself a dose of compassion. I like to rub my arm just like as a reminder to parent myself, not to inner critic, but just to go, this is a hard moment. This is a hard moment. Breathe. I'm a breath holder. Remember to breathe when all this intensity is going on around us. That calms our nervous system. When we've done that, then it's great to set a limit. What's okay and what's not okay. In our house, we don't hit. In our house, we don't name call. And you already have established that when you name call, when you hit, because they're kids, they're dysregulated, then there'll be a consequence to what happens. And you've already, there's a handout on them they send to you about how to talk this over with a parenting partner. Hopefully you have one, or just a friend, and then how to talk it over with your kids, and then how to implement it, because they will push the boundary. That's their role in life. And then, but the whole key is having a system so that then everyone doesn't blow up in a minute. You've got something to rely on that supports you all. So you set a limit. Your child is going to react. They are going to have big feelings. No, go to bed. You said it was time to go to bed. And that can be exhausting at the end of the day when you're just at your limits end. So again, this is hard. This is hard. That's a hard moment. And I believe you. I believe you don't want to go to bed. I know you have so much energy and you want 5 stories, and I'm tired. I'm just done for the day. So we can do that when we have more time, if we go to bed more easily tomorrow. But tonight, I've got nothing. And sleep is so important. It's time for bed. And then don't just let them do it on their own, because a boundary is what I will do. I'm going to gently hold their hand and lead them back to the bed. And again, you know how hard this is. Bedtime routines are the worst because everyone's tired. Everyone's at the end of their rope. But they need to know that you will enforce your boundary, and that you care, and that tomorrow's another day, and that you won't hold a grudge, and you won't give them disapproval face and shame them. And you're like, hey, this is a hard moment. And still, it's time for bed. So we'll talk more on that in the Q&A. Okay, so here's the interactive part. And everyone's got their cameras off, which I'm fine with, but I would love you to get a piece of paper, or you can talk into your phone, or you can just think about it, just imagine. I'm gonna kind of lead you through a guided visualization. And all my tools I use for coaching. So this is when you get a practice, and before we open it up to the Q&A. And I want to leave plenty of time for that. We are doing well. So the practice, I can't say enough about, there's head knowledge. It's the first step, is to just get these concepts. Feel first. Validate is your number one job. Validate and empathize. Setting boundaries is clear is kind. So first is understand these concepts. Then the second thing is to practice them, because this is absolutely counterintuitive. It's 180. So old ways, new ways. We've got to keep practicing the new ways, because we're going to start here and change is hard and it's unfamiliar, and we're going to feel kind of stupid. We're going to feel awkward. As Brené Brown, I lead a Brené Brown book club that has 27,000 members, and she, just a tip in the middle of this, she did an audio book for parents called The Gifts of Imperfect Parenting. I'm actually doing a class about it now if you want more information about that. And that she said, clear is kind. I wanted to be my kids' friends. I didn't want to upset them, so I would try to avoid telling them things. Clear boundaries are kind. So, but it's hard to change. So we're just like, come on over here. So practice, practice, practice. So I want you each to think of something that your child does that upsets you, that is frustrating. I just want to say, welcome, Lacey. That sends you into orbit, that makes you frustrated and angry. And one more thing, I just want to make a plug for self-care and meeting your own needs is not selfish. It helps us have more patience and be less 0 to 60. The more self-care I've been able to get, you probably experienced this yourself, that when they do that thing of talking back or refusing to put on shoes, sometimes I go, oh, right to, how dare you? And sometimes I'll go, oh, that's funny, come on. I roll with it more easily. So meet our own, fill our own tank. It is absolutely essential. So anyway, think of a time, could be today, probably today, could be this week, that your child did something, one of your children, that was really frustrating. Could be lying. Lying is a big one. I have a whole thing on lying. Could have been hitting a sibling. It could have been hitting you. Could have been refusing to leave, to go, to put on something. Could have been a rude talk. If you have an older child, could be an eye roll. Oh my gosh, my daughter was so good at the eye roll. And I just sent me to this, again, the thought I had was, she's disrespecting me. In reality, the eye roll was, I don't feel like I have everything I need to be successful. And so I'm going to push back on you instead of feeling hurt or lonely or confused or uncertain or embarrassed, or, our kids try to offload their feelings onto us too. So again, if they say, I hate you, Mom, that is not about you. That is about, I hate this feeling inside of me and I don't know how to handle it. So I'm going to offload it at you instead of feeling that discomfort, because probably I wasn't able to model it until I learned these skills and tools. Okay, so you have something in mind. So write it down of what your child did, just as a video camera could see. And not a whole story, just this child, middle child was hitting or was rude or whatever it was. Okay, so you got does everyone have their example? So then our old way, we all know, we don't need to go over that. Disapproving, yelling, losing our cool, telling them what they should have done, should is very invalidating. Instead, we're going to do the 180 turn. So imagine yourself, talk in your phone, just think of the conversation in your head and think of some of these phrases. So they refuse to leave the park. And instead of, you're going to get in trouble, I gave you the warnings and it's time and now I'm angry. No, instead 180 turn, new way. Oh, it makes sense. You don't want to leave the car. What else? What else do you want to do? What else is going on for you? And I believe you. So just, I'm going to stop talking and just let you do that first exercise. And then I'm just going to talk through quick the second. So the stop to connect. Put on your own oxygen mask. Where are you? Are you reactive? Or are you up in your head rational and they're down here in their bodies and their hearts? So this is how to self-connect. And then the limits. So this is what's okay and what's not okay. So I'm just going to give you about 2 minutes to just think about a tangible example, and then we're going to talk about it after, and go through these steps so that you can come alongside your child, even when they're doing terrible behavior. Okay. So Stephanie, I'd love you to, both of you, share what your example is that was triggering. And again, there's so many to choose from. It's hard to pick just one, but it's great to do. And then let's kind of just, I'd love you to walk me through it and any questions that you have.
Okay. So Dax, so he's 6 and he's been doing this often where he's yelling and shouting a lot. And a lot of times it's directed at his sister. And today we were getting out of the car after I picked them up from school and took them to come on. And he's yelling at his sister that she did something to hurt him, but instead of, being kind or calm about it, he just starts screaming and yelling. And that's been his new thing lately. So that's probably one that we're both dealing with. That's kind of hard to navigate.
Yes, very hard. So what would be something that you could say to him to help validate, normalize, let him know he's okay, because he needs that first before he can choose a different behavior?
My first thought was just to tell him, I understand that she hurt you. I know it hurts when she does, she like twisted his skin. He said that she twisted his skin and it made it hurt. So I told him, I know that hurts you, but I wasn't exactly sure where to go from there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And sibling is just a whole nother sort of level of hard, because instead of just one child and you, it's 2 kids, each other, as well as you. And so they're vying for your attention, and they're also trying to get each other's attention. And they're also, it's just a lot going on. So you could even say something like, wow, this is complex, isn't it? Because you guys, it's hard to know who did what to who. And I know you both want attention, and you also, don't want to get hurt. So is this hard for both of you? Just kind of name and acknowledge, instead of going, we're so into the right, wrong, good, bad of dualistic thinking, where it's kind of a zero-sum game. And that's when we get into fault and blame. And they've seen this on TV, they've seen it in shows, they've probably heard you. So we just all have a really bad habit of going right to fault and blame. Well, he did this, well, she did that, and, then we're arguing. So it's really stop and connect and say, hey, in our family, we treat each other kindly. And no matter who did what to who, are you hurt? Are you okay? What's going on? And often it's something, again, what's the gold mine underneath the bad behavior? Why did they start to interact like that in the first place? They have an unmet need. Do they need one-on-one time? Do they need a snack? Do they need just a loving touch? Do they need attention? Do they need to tell you about their day or something terrible that happened at school that is what's really going on? That's really the gold mine. the behavior, the tip of the iceberg, is they're going at each other. They're doing that to get attention. They're needing connection. There's an unmet need. So you just keep going sort of other over layers, and don't talk about the top. We call it the content. Sometimes the content is my cookie broke, or he hit me. But what's underneath, the gold mine underneath, is I don't feel seen by my sister. I don't feel, I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling, whatever they're feeling. And especially after school, they almost need a crash pad, because they've kept it together for their teachers, for the social dynamics that are very complicated, for hours and hours and hours. And what they really need is to, let out the energy. It's release the emotion, release all the things that have happened to them that day. So jump up and down, or get a dance music on, just, move around silly. It'll help them address the gold mine that's underneath, the unmet needs. Instead of who's right and who's wrong and who did what to who. Because when you're at that level, you're never gonna, it's not a happy place. So the stop and what's going on for you. When they do this, and I'd love each of you to speak because you're gonna have your own experience. What are your thoughts and what's going on in your body? Start with your body. How does this tension or this frustration, do you have any noticing of what happens?
Yeah, it makes me start to get really frustrated, and just, it makes my heart start beating fast. And then I kind of lose focus, like, well, I don't know what the right answer is here or the right thing to say. And so I get frustrated because I don't know what to say to them to fix the situation.
Right. And even the thought that you've layered on top that there is a way to fix the situation and that there is a right way, because there isn't. You're making this up every moment as you go. And so one silly thing is you can just say, who needs a hug? Which one of you needs a hug? Or do you need a tickle? Just do something to shift the energy from who's right, who's wrong, and all that, to how can I meet their needs? How can I meet my own needs? This is tricky. This is making my stomach hurt to try and listen to their argument. This is hard.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, what's your name?
It's Michael.
Michael. Hi, Michael. Nice to meet you. How about what goes on for you when the kids fight? I know it was one of my biggest triggers.
My struggles are in the morning, more or less, every morning, because it's the same routine every day before school, but yet, you're supposed to leave at 7:25 or 7:20 or whatever, and there's still all these things that have to be done every single morning after you've told them multiple times to put your clothes on, brush your teeth, get your backpack ready, and nothing ever gets done on time. So it's like, I have a hard time. I'm trying to have them be responsible for their own stuff and also help them, but I don't want to do it for them and baby them. And then I get frustrated because they just don't do it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so familiar. I bet everyone here and all the people who are going to be watching this are so, it's really awful when you ask them to do something and they don't cooperate. That's that one moment I was talking about. So you can do old ways of just keep nagging at them. I call that voice in my own self. It was Tilly the taskmaster. And I would just keep repeating myself and just keep them on task so they would keep going. And that's not the role, right? We're trying to model so that they take responsibility and learn it themselves. So how can we shift from old ways, sounds like it's a repeating pattern, to this new 180 shift? So in an example of, it sounds like it's clothes, it's teeth brushing, it's all the things. So what's the gold mine underneath those behaviors? Why are they delaying? What could be going on for them? What could their feelings be? What could and I asked suggested that you print out this sheet that I sent, and if you didn't, that's totally fine. But this is all the feelings and all the needs. Awesome.
Yep.
You got it. Okay. So just maybe take a look and what are some of the things that they could be feeling as they are in transition from home, sleep, and going off to school.
I would think that if no one knew our family, I would say they're tired and overwhelmed or something, but our kids get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. At least Dax does.
Yeah.
Eve gets up at about 6:15 or so, and we had, I mean, there's ample time to get yourself ready, and even like go put your shoes on. You tell them multiple times to put their shoes on, and they just do other stuff.
Yeah. So that
they're
must
just
be
not
even more
interested.
Baffling.
Yeah.
Why aren't they ready? They've had hours.
Yes.
So just to point out that you're coming, like I come from, a very rational place.
Yep.
This doesn't make sense. And we need to drop into our bodies. Where are we feeling that irritation? We need to think of what are all the thoughts we're putting on time. It doesn't make sense. They should be doing it. And just notice that is adding to your feelings of frustration and your own feeling, your own need for them to be in partnership with you, for them to be responsible. So again, all that makes sense. So just give yourself of course I'm irritated. This doesn't make sense. This is frustrating. They aren't listening and they're not doing it. So now if you can just, again, validate yourself, be frustrated for the moment, and then go to the gold mine and look at them. So I bet they are wanting some connection, wanting some fun and play, wanting some attention. They're having a need that is unmet, and it doesn't have to take as long as you fear it does to get on their level, eyeball to eyeball, and say, hey, how are you this morning? How's it going? What are you thinking about school? Is there anything you're anxious about? Is there anything going on in the playground or with your friends? Is there anything going on with your teacher? Is there a test? It's just kind of this curious searching for what's really going on for them. There's a valid reason why they aren't cooperating and getting their shoes and getting their backpack, and there's a good reason. I don't know what it is, but when I can come with that energy and see them as they make sense, I believe you that this is hard for you to get your stuff ready for school. Tell me more. What would support you? When they have your attention like that, I would love you to try it and just see if your morning routine changes. When you can give them that one-on-one curiosity, attention, validate whatever they're feeling. The hard thing is to have time for this as parents. And if they go into a whole big story about what's going on in the playground or what they're worried about at school, or so maybe start with that conversation after school when you maybe have more time.
Mm-hmm.
But just the key sort of concept is everything they do is to meet needs. So even if it doesn't make sense to me, it makes sense to them. And until I can get to that gold mine and see, hear, help them feel safe and accepted, then they're going to keep resisting because they're not getting their needs met.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'd love you to try it and report back.
Okay.
Any other questions? And then I'd love for either Christy or Amanda or Lacey to have courage and unmute and share an experience. And if you can't, feel free to put it in the chat or just hop on and say, I've got kids back here and I'm just trying to listen. Because I totally understand that too. Another bit of time. And if not, Lacey, do you have any? Just a minute. And are there any others, Stephanie and Michael, that you have been dealing with that have been long-standing patterns of frustration that your kids do around visiting family, around school, around devices? There's so many things to choose from usually.
Well, I think I've been trying to convince Michael that they have ADD or ADHD. And so that's kind of been a struggle, is trying to find.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me. I think they do. That's part of the morning routine problem too.
Right.
They just
Getting distracted.
They have just so much going on in their head and so much distraction, and
Right.
they can't concentrate on one thing or like one goal.
Yeah.
They're just all over the place, and
They forget what they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do have some ADD going on for sure. Undiagnosed, but
I think it's more and more common, so it does make sense. And especially if they get habits around it, then so two things I'll say: there's strategies to meet needs, and there's then the actual unmet need. So the strategy could be to make a chart of like a visual of all the things. Maybe you've tried that already, of all the things they need to do to get out the door. And that might help them have a path to success.
Yeah, we did do that one time, and they really liked it. They liked, I broke it down into like little 10-minute increments, and they really liked looking at that and kind of checking things off. Okay, I brushed my teeth. Okay, I have my clothes on, and that kind of stuff. So maybe we need to do that again so that
And it goes back again to that being seen. It is the biggest need for kids, that we're so busy doing so many different things that we think we're in the same room with them, but we're not giving them that one-on-one attention. And they just soak it up for that. Sorry, someone just asked a question.
Oh, it's Lacey. So I can't get my camera to work for some reason. But my question is like, what, when you do all those, like the other day, my daughter was having like meltdown, and I'm like, what do you need? Like, do you want a hug? Do you want space? And she was mad because I didn't draw like a perfect circle, and it was just screaming and yelling. And I'm like trying to comfort her. I'm sometimes, and I know all this stuff, right? So I'm like, I'm doing all the strategies that like, do you want space? Do you want a hug? Do you want this? And it was like, it didn't matter. Like nothing. I quit telling me what to do. I'm like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just asking if you need a little space or if you want a hug. Like, so what?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's the key thing to emotions, is that they need to be experienced in their body. And if it's a big emotion, and again, sometimes when I was in my head with my strong-willed daughter, was very similar to that. And I would try to talk at her. Well, she's not here. She's back here. She actually just needs to experience and feel how awful this is. And again, the broken cookie is the circle wasn't right. It's not about the circle or the broken cookie or the backpack. It's what's the gold mine underneath. She has an unmet need, and she might not be able to even go there until she's done experiencing her rage, her feeling of powerlessness, her irritation, it's like ants crawling all over her body, and she really just needs to have a tantrum. If I could have an adult tantrum business, I would, because we've lost the art of how to experience our own emotions and how to release them. And when we don't do that, they get stuck inside our bodies. And so, Lacey, it makes perfect sense that you're trying to, do this talk. She's not yet ready for the talk. She's just needing to wail and move. And there's actually this thing called a damn it doll. And you literally, it's going to be a little loud, but you let them experience anger until they're done. And when they're done, again, my daughter needed time and space. Then she's ready for the nice touches or a hug or talking about it. It's never as soon as I want it to be. I'm ready for her to shift through this emotion. It's awful for me. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And I think my job is to make her feel better. So again, I had to unlearn all my old ways and just realize that emotion is for her. I don't want to interrupt it or stop it before she gets to the physical release she needs, because it's not just about the circle. It's about something that happened with her friend, and it's about something that happened with her brother, or it's about something that happened with her teacher, or she didn't get the color of crayon she wanted. Or, I mean, I don't know the age of your child, but it's about all those micro frustrations that she's pushed inside and hasn't been able to express because she's needed to be good and needed to cooperate. And so they become pressure cookers. We all become pressure cookers. And so the hard answer is that we need more time and space to feel and experience and release these emotions.
Well, and sometimes I do that. I'll be like, you can, because I can't handle that screaming. I'm like, if you want to scream, that's fine, but you need to go in your room. Or she just keeps in. And if you say like, don't tell me what to do, or I'm not angry, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
That don't sound like it, but okay.
I totally get it. And again, I believe you. If she says she's not angry, she's needing to not lose face or something. And you can do what can the video camera say? Your face is getting a little red and your voice is louder than it was. I hear you're not angry, but I can also see something's going on. And I'm here for you. You're not ready yet, but I'm here. And Lacey, I don't know if you've tried this, but put in earbuds, because a lot of us are very sensitive to noises, and it does dysregulate our nervous system. My best friend she would get like, this is driving me crazy. And so she started putting in earbuds. And again, it's that two things are true at once. This is one of the other skills that I wanted to bring up, that it is both true that your daughter is dysregulated and needing to be loud, and that is really hard for you because of the volume and because of the intensity and being able to regulate your own nervous system. So both are true. It's not that one is true so the other one isn't. It's a hard situation. It's so both of you compassion. This is not easy to validate her, to say I believe you, to say I'm here, and she's like wanting nothing to do with you, and that doesn't feel good. So
but at the same time, she wants to be right next to me too. So I'm just like, oh, child, like,
yes,
make up your mind.
That is so familiar, and it's hard because what they don't want is this big, awful, uncomfortable emotion, and they don't know how to get rid of it. And so she's dumping it on you, but that's not a great learned behavior, because that's again fault and blame and offloading. She just needs to be with it and to know she's not alone. With any of these big emotions, they need to know it's not going to last forever, and they're not alone. And when you've got these strong-willed kids that they don't want and they do want, and my daughter too, she did not want to go away when she was dysregulated, but I didn't want to be around her. So can we just admit it's a tricky situation? And I'm here, and if you're going to be so loud, I'm going to go with you to your room. And if it's too loud for me, I'm going to put in earbuds. You're not wrong. You're feeling something. It's there for you. It's not going to last forever. And I get something matters. That's the S in the stop to connect. Something matters. There's an emotion. It's here for you to tell you about your unmet needs. And you might not be ready yet. And I get it. It'll take as long as it takes. And you're normal and you're okay. And it is going to take longer than I want. So it's a lot of compassion for you in that tricky situation of navigating, validating her, having it last longer than you want, and not having it shift when you're ready for it to shift.
All right.
Stephanie's got kids coming back. Michael.
Yeah.
They've been in the
They're-
bath for an
yeah.
hour.
They're pruny. They're pruny. Lacey, that was a great question. If you have any other follow-ons, and Amanda and Christy, if you want to bring your voice into the room or type into the chat of any questions.
I do just have a question, just because I missed the first half because it was just too chaotic to sign on,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh crap. It sounds like you're recording it so we can watch later.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
yes, and I will send it out to everyone.
Thank you.
So, and yes, I hope with the MVPs you can even maybe have watch groups and maybe get circles of people to talk about this and just get, because this information saved my life. And I just want to re-emphasize that part of the journey is to reparent yourself and befriend your own emotions, because that will help you tolerate your children's emotions. And it is increasing the window of tolerance for your discomfort. So Lacey, that great example of, your child is melting down for no particular reason, it seems. And to still, her lived experiences, she's dysregulated. She's back there. She's kind of feeling alone in it because it's hard for us to understand from a rational point of view. And she's not ready for a hug. And she just is chaotic. And so just even say the observations of what's going on for her, and just remind her, I'm here. It won't last forever. Don't try to make sense of it because it's not rational. It's just an emotion because she has a need for connection, but she doesn't know. She's really unskillful at this age. And this temperament sounds like she has a really strong temperament. And so again, it's just accept, see her, create safety for her, and then do all that for yourself, because it's really hard to do in the face of a meltdown. You might need to go have your own meltdown after she does that. That was one of my great strategies of either exercise or just movement with music. That was a lifesaver for me, to be able to release my own emotions so that I wasn't all bottled up as a pressure cooker as well, because when the whole family's pressure cookers, that's when we do this. So in summary, the biggest thing is your number one job is to validate first, and to get the vocabulary into your house. There's also cards that go with it for both kids and adults about expressing their feelings, because when we do that, then they know how to regulate themselves and then release as much emotion. I can send you a card about constructive ways to release emotion. Again, the whole key is not that emotion is bad or meltdowns are bad or reactions are bad. It's when we direct all that at each other that we have some suffering. So I really appreciate all of your participation. I hope this was valuable. I would love your feedback. I'll send that out to you on Friday, a quick little sheet. And any questions that you have, I will send the resources about how to set limits your kids will actually follow, and step-by-step process for how to do that. And also constructive ways to release emotion. So.
Oh, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Thank you, Allison.
Welcome. I don't think I ever got to the Q&A for the Q&A. So thank you. Your kids are so lucky to have you, because you're caring parents, you're showing up for this, and you're wanting to learn new skills. So way to go. And tell your friends that they can watch this, and we'll send it to the school so they can get a copy.
Perfect.
Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Oh, I did want to ask, if I'm still here. Oops, leave my kids. Is there, or just what, is there one thing that you learned tonight that you would like to sort of vocalize and make a commitment that you are going to try to practice?
Validating their feelings.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
Wonderful.
I think it's also just trying to like remind yourself, or like along with validating their feelings, just like trying to think like what could be more, or asking them like what is going on more to get a
Yeah.
better insight maybe.
Mhm.
And again, in the heat of the moment, they might not have words for it. So that might be a circle back conversation or repair. If you've yelled, it's great to make a repair, because again, that changes the end of the story, and they'll maybe have more ideas about what is going on. What is the gold mine that was underneath? What are those unmet needs? What was that circumstance that happened at school or so you're right. That's a great one to keep reminding yourself about.
And the other thing too, Allison, I like that to remind us that their brains haven't even developed those skills, that, you know, they're acting this way because they haven't developed the skills to be able to handle it any other way. So it's not really them. Don't take it personal, because they just don't know how to deal with it, really.
That's all they've got. They have
Mhm.
driving skills.
Mhm. Yep.
Exactly. So we're learning along with them. That's that's kind of the moral of the story. So again, they're our greatest teachers.
Yep.
Well, wonderful. Well, glad you can hang on to that, and we will see you whenever we do this the next time.
Okay. See you. Bye.
Bye. Good night,
Good night.
everyone.